Hey, what's up guys? John here once again, and today I am here to give you my final full review about this Red Komodo. Many of you are aware I've acquired this camera just a little over 7 weeks, and I have been fortunate to actually having shot 8 projects with this camera over the last 7 weeks. So my review is actually a real world use and not just test. So let's just dive in. So the first thing that I actually like about this camera is the form factor, the size. Again, it's boxy, just as Red always make their cameras, and it's just perfect, lightweight, a gimbal runner and run a gun camera. So it's a camera that will deliver you with cinema grade image, and you can place this camera in any angle. Currently I have the tilter base plate and the tilter Komodo rig, and then also Canon variable ND filter, and then the tilter V mount adapter on there. So it's got a little bit of weight, but even that, it's not compared to the original DSMC1 and the DSMC2, the Raven to be precise, which is supposed to be a whole lot lighter. So definitely the size is the number one on my list. Now, number two is being able to record Red RAW files, the R3D on here in 6K mode, in 5K and in 4K. And also in 2K, you're able to record R3D, non-destructive RAW files. As many of us are aware, the R3D is the best RAW workflow in the industry. And also, having said that, it's not just limited to the R3D, but you can also record ProRes, which is perfect. So we all know what ProRes is and what file format it is. It's easy to edit. So you can actually record ProRes for the smaller jobs, like the weddings that I shot. It was all shot on ProRes. And comparing it to the R3D, in my opinion, after using it, I don't see a big difference besides the fact that the resolution is limited to 4K. So in ProRes mode, you're not able to shoot 6K, 5K, but only 4K and UHD 2K. Now, number three of my likes is not having to use proprietary accessories with this particular Red. As many of us are aware, with all the Red, you need proprietary Red accessories to actually have the camera up and running. For example, the Red Max, and all of these things adds up to the price. Talking about price, we'll get to that in a bit. It adds up to the price and makes the camera actually a lot more heavier and a lot more bulkier when you actually don't want it to be that way. So kudos on Red for allowing this camera to take third-party accessories, which is a lot cheaper. I mean, for example, this tilter V-lock adapter only costs £130 including postage, compared to the DSMC 1s and 2s that you need an IO module to be able to attach a V-lock battery. The IO module costs like £1,500, and then you add up the cost as you're getting a monitor, as you're getting a cage and stuff like that. So having this for under £200 or under £150 as a third party, and there are many other companies that are doing them as well. So there are varieties of options that you can actually choose from instead of having to go for Red. Talking about proprietary accessories, comes in the CFast Express cards. Again, they're not Red mags, so you can easily grab any of these Red approved CFast cards online, Amazon, and they're fairly cheap compared to the Red mags. Yes, they are still a little bit more expensive than standard SD cards and standard CF cards and so, but it's a fraction of what you actually pay for a full Red mag. What I personally use is I've got two Angel Birds, which are 128 gigs, and then I've picked up this pro grade 256 gigabyte. It's not Red approved, but it works in all the resolution, and then also it's super reliable because all of the gigs that I've had with this camera, I've actually used it to shoot, and I haven't had any drop frames, I haven't had any damaged files. Right, now the number 5 on my list is battery consumption on the Red Komodo 6K. The battery consumption is, if not half of what the DSMC 1 and 2 consumes during recording times or operating time. And so it allows you to pick up these small lightweight FX Nanos or any small lightweight V-mount battery. My choice were the FX Nanos, and this particular one is a 50 watt-hour battery, and this very small battery lasts me 2.5 hours on the Red Komodo, and that is with continuous recording without actually turning off the camera. And also picked up the 98 watt-hour battery of FX Lion. This actually allows and doubles up twice of this, so this gives me just there and about 5 hours worth of shoot. And I've got one of that, and I've got two of the 50 watt-hour batteries. The reason why I chose two of the 50 watt-hour batteries is because it's a lot lighter compared to the 98-hour battery for obvious reasons, but the size wise it's exactly the same size. It just allows me to do a lot easier run and gun, especially when I need to put the Komodo on a gimbal like my Ronin S. This works and balances very, very well on there. Now, the number 6 on my like list is actually the onboard touchscreen monitoring capability monitor here on the Red Komodo. Yes, it is small, so I like it, but I have a dislike, which I'll come to in a bit. It's just awesome. I mean, having a built-in LCD is something new to Red. You don't find a lot. So this allows you to actually pick it up and go run and gunning. I mean, when you need to shoot like simple B-rolls without having to attach a bulky monitor on there, you can easily just slap a handle on here, a lens and a battery, and you're up and going. Okay, so this one is actually to be expected on a Red camera. It's having the guides, the focusing tools, and the exposure guides to be able to work professionally. This goes right across all the DSMC bodies, DSMC 1, DSMC 2, they're all in there. But it's definitely super handy to have these features in there. Now, the number 8 on the list is this RF mount. Being able to have an RF mount on a camera is super awesome in 2020 to 2021 and onwards, because we are all aware that so far RF mount is the best in the industry, as the Micro Four Third was. But with the RF mount, it's allowed them to put in a Super 35, and in certain cameras you can actually find a full frame. So it's definitely versatile mount, which means that I can pick myself up one of these variable ND drop-in Canon EF to RF mount and just put it on here, meaning I do not have to put an ND filter or a matte box at the end of my lens. I have it in here with variable stops on there. So definitely is some of my likes on this particular Red Komodo. My number 9 on the list is the Wi-Fi capability. This little antenna here, the things that it can do is just awesome. This allows you to actually monitor your footage. If you don't have an onboard monitor, you're able to sync and connect your smartphone or your tablet and be able to monitor the footage. So I have a feature film coming up, and that's something that I'll be considering doing, allowing the producer or the director to actually tap into my Komodo and monitor the footage on their smartphone or on their laptop or on their tablet, meaning they do not have to hover over my neck to see the screen that I'm actually looking at. So it's definitely a plus, and I'm 100% sure that this feature is going to carry on with the new releases of Red in the future, which is definitely very good. So kudos to Red for implementing this specific feature. And then number 10, but not the least, is the price. This Red Komodo costs only £6,000. I mean, £6,000 is a lot of money, but if you know and use this camera, you realize that you have something that is future proven. In my previous video, I mentioned that this is going to be my next workhorse for the next 5 years. If you haven't seen that video, the link is right here. You might want to check it out. But definitely, because this shoots 6K RAW, 5K RAW, 4K RAW, 2K RAW, and 6K at 50 frames, and the lower the resolution, the higher frame rates you get. Again, I am not a big super fan of slow motion, but what the camera is able to do is more than enough. I'm not going to be shooting water drops in slow motion and stuff like that. So definitely for £6,000, getting R3D RAW features on here, getting ProRes on here, getting RF mount, getting a lightweight camera that you can actually finally hold when you're shooting handheld without having a back pain after an hour of shoot is definitely worth that £6,000. So if you are in the market and looking at upgrading your kit, you definitely want to consider the Red Komodo. Now, as we know, there is no camera in the world that's perfect, and so the Red Komodo is also not perfect. It's fortunate that there are only 3 things that I actually dislike about this Red Komodo, which starts with the autofocusing feature. I know that it's in there and it says that it's in beta mode, and again, it's not something that is a deal breaker for me personally, but having used the Canon 1DX Mark III, having used the C200, that feature kind of gets you attached. But however, as real cinematographers, we always do manual focus. So it's something that Red is updating as they claim they will, and it will get better over time. It's still in beta mode and it's not reliable whatsoever. I used the autofocus continuous mode during the wedding shoot, and a lot of the footages were actually soft and out of focus. As much as I was monitoring it right here with the peaking, it looked like it was sharp, but the autofocus doesn't hit the marks well. So it's definitely not something for you to run and gun with on a Ronin moving around. It's good for when you're doing sit down like this, where the character don't move too much, you have the focus dead on. That will work perfectly. I did a test on that autofocus feature and the link is up here. And this is the reason why I'm saying that it's best to actually have the camera in real world use, then you're able to figure out the limitations of the camera. Because when I did those tests, everything seems fine because it was very subtle movement. It was slider dolly in and out movement. It works perfectly. But as soon as I put it on a Ronin and I was starting to follow people around, it started hunting back and forth and not hitting the marks. So definitely you want to think about that. If it's autofocus that is the thing you like, then definitely this camera is not for you. Right, back to the onboard LCD. The reason why I wasn't 100% in like with it is because number one, the touch screen is very laggy, and I don't think that is something that they can fix. I believe it's something to do with the processing of the LCD, because there is so many features on this camera. There is so much thing that you can actually do on the LCD, and I believe the more things they're jamming on there, the slower that LCD will be, because one, it's the first for Red to do touchscreen. So it's something that they're learning. It's a learning curve for them, and they're learning to get their heads around it. So that's one thing that I don't like. I'll be happy if there is a firmware that's actually going to recompose the menu structure so that it will be easier and a lot more fluid as the way we use our smartphones. Also, that same LCD, as I mentioned earlier, is not super reliable for critical focus. It's good for composing your shots and framing and using the false color to judge stuff, but it's not good enough for pulling critical focus. It's super unreliable when it comes to that. As much as, again, I said, I had the focus peaking on, it seems sharp on here, but it's not at the end. This is strictly because it's a very, very tiny screen. One thing, if Red you're watching, would be great is actually allowing a firmware update that will actually allow us to remove all the tools on the screen so we get a clean view of the image, but then wider, bigger, that fills up, if not center of the screen, instead of having that tiny little screen to look at. If they actually release a firmware that will allow us to have a clean view of the image, I think this screen will be very, very beneficial to many. That doesn't mean that it's not good. It's definitely good for what you get out of this camera. So that's it for me. I hope this review will help you in deciding what camera to pick up next. But on my side, this is definitely my workhorse for the next 5 years because of all the features that's actually packed in this camera. And remember, the more you use a device, the better you become at it. So definitely consider if it's something for you. Now, if you're new to the channel, my name is Bruce. Consider subscribing to this channel for more videos like these. If you are already a subscriber, do go ahead and hit the like button. Stay tuned and I'll catch you on the next one. Peace.